Welcome to the weekly discussion with candidate for Granville County Sheriff, Vance Johnson. My friend, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you, Trey?
We're doing good. This is part of our local talk, Decision 2022, here on Next Door Radio. First, we'd like to start these discussion of a quick little introduction of who you are.
Vance Johnson, running for sheriff, obviously, and I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. I've been a police chief to different agencies, and I've done every type of job in law enforcement you can think of: canine officer, drug officer, interdiction officer. I've supervised those things. I've been commanders of those things. Wonderful wife, 2 grown children, both live in Granville County, 3 grandchildren that runs us ragged, and we enjoy. And military veteran, Army Desert Storm. Got out, got called back in for Desert Storm, which was interesting, in and of itself. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, well, so I like to start though, just in case, and for some reason nobody's heard of Vance Johnson or are just now started paying attention to either the elections coming up or the primaries, getting into the general. So I'd like to kind of start those. Again, this is candidate for Granville County Sheriff, Vance Johnson, joins us here on the weekly discussion. So let's kind of dive into really the more experience stuff. Get into I'm a big fan of stories, big fan of on-field, just experience. So talk a little bit more about that, if you can.
Most of my family was in law enforcement,
yeah.
Right? So, Thanksgiving and Christmases was all about, telling the war stories. So I grew up around it, and, so I had a lot of experiences from that. But, I've been in the trenches, it's not I've been a police chief, a couple places, assistant chief now, been in executive, led organizations, but, I was in the trenches at one time. I had somebody gave me a picture today from 1994 with me in my uniform, and my youngest daughter said, wow, you look young, right? So they don't remember those days.
Yeah.
And, a whole lot of holidays, Christmases that you work, and, it's you balance that with family, and, you just do your best with that. But, I was thinking about the working the holidays and how hard it is on the officers. And, the busiest day I have ever worked in my career was a Christmas morning. And it was a Christmas day. And that Christmas morning was, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was just nonstop, call after call. And, it's the holidays, and most of the time it slows down after midnight. Everybody's enjoying Santa Claus kind of thing. But it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I see a gentleman staggering down the main street, and he's got his young child, looked like to be about 5 years old, carrying a 6-pack of beer for him. And I said, whoa, we got to check this out, So obviously I went up, talked to him, and he didn't speak English, so we had a communication issue there. He started getting a little aggressive, and I went to frisk him, and he started fighting, and we were struggling, and he was reaching in his pants, and my backup officer showed up, and we were able to get him handcuffed, and he had a loaded .357 Magnum in the back of his pants.
Oh my gosh!
He was trying to pull that out, and he's got his 5-year-old son there carrying a 6-pack of beer for him.
Wow.
And it's a lot of experiences like that, and there's some good ones. I can remember doing a mile track with the K9, following a lost child. That's just stuff that's the stuff you really truly remember. I don't know that I could track a mile with a dog through the woods at this point, but that's that was a lot of fun. It's a life that's different. A lot of people need to realize that. I've been in the trenches, and I've done a lot of these things. I've been on car stops where there's $250,000 of drug money, and it was handled correctly. I've been a part of those things directly. I've been the first one through the door on a SWAT team. I created it. I purchased the equipment. I selected the people. I was the first one through the door. I carried the shield. And, I was the last one through the door, depending on how we did it. And I've done well over 100 high-risk warrant entries. So I'm not just that executive, because I keep saying that, because I am. But I've done a lot of things in my career that I think it's important for people to realize that.
So that word experience, and what's the definition experience for Vance Johnson? What's that word mean?
Well, I think especially when you're talking about in this race, what experience means to me, it needs to relate to what the job is we're applying for. It must relate. If it doesn't relate, then, and I said this the last time we talked, Trey, the experience level, you're very experienced at what you do, and people have lots of different experiences and are very good at what they do, and I could never do what they do. Mm-hmm. But in this case, the experience needs to relate. Mine absolutely does. Put it next to the job description when they hired the last sheriff. Take my resume and sit it next to that job description. I think it's I don't think that's critical of anyone else in this race. I think it is what it is. It's our life experiences. It's our work experiences, and I think it must relate. If it doesn't, then you should question that.
Again, candidate for Granville County Sheriff Vance Johnson joins us here by way of our weekly discussion with Vance Johnson, but right here on our Local Talk and Next Door Radio. So the biggest thing that I'm asked all the time, either email, text, when I'm out in public at events, are we doing a debate?
Well, I hear it all the time.
I know you hear it all the time. Does it mean anything? Does it matter? Talk a little bit more about that if you can.
I think it does matter. I mean, certainly. I think it has to be done appropriately. And there was a lot of chatter, social media, I try to avoid it as much as I can, but social media, the chatter gets crazy about the debate. And, I think that I didn't like that. So what my suggestion is, like I said last time, have Mr. Fountain call me. Well, I ended up contacting him and saying, look, what are we going to do? And, we were both agreeable with some very simple terms. I didn't feel like that the party, the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, needed to be involved with those discussions. We're grown men, and I thought we could deal with that. And, we agreed that we would reach out to the unaffiliated candidate and see if we could sit and come up with some guidelines of what would be acceptable. And the unaffiliated candidate doesn't want to do that at this point. Not speaking for him, he can certainly speak for himself. But at this point, that's where we're at. Robert Fountain and I have discussed it, and as far as major terms, we're okay. Mm-hmm. The fine details certainly would need to be worked out, but it was the number one thing for both of us when we talked is that if all three candidates are not there, it really doesn't hold the value that it needs to. And it's important for the public to be able to see all three candidates. And if that's not the case, then I don't know that there will be a debate. I don't know what value is two people debating. Yeah. I just don't know. And we both agreed to that up front before we even knew what the unaffiliated candidate would say. So that's kind of where we're at. And I wish I had a little bit more clear answers. And I know I'll get the questions again tomorrow about it, and you will too. And I believe there was some discussion with you about
absolutely. And I told Robert Fountain, I said I am all for it. I would love to be a part of it because again, it's giving back to our community, but you guys having a voice. But I agree with you where it is really not. You can't have just two when you got three running.
Right.
I don't think that's fair.
Right. Well, no, I don't think it's fair. I think you get to see two candidates kind of go at it on issues about, what works, what don't, and then the other candidate is not there to be a part of that at all. And I don't feel like a debate should ever be negative.
Yeah.
I think,
I agree.
I think we could have all agreed to it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, we can talk about experiences, and we can talk about what our plans are, and it doesn't have to be negative at all. But hey, that's not where we're at. I think we're kind of stuck in a holding pattern, and I don't know that it will happen.
No,
unfortunately.
Which again,
this is our debate.
Yeah, right? Which is perfectly fine, and that's a good thing. That's why we ask, because that's perfectly fine if there's not a debate, because that's what these programs are. What we do with the Sunday sit down, that's what we do with the weekly discussion. It allows you to get your opinions out. So
right.
Again, if this is the first time that you're hearing these, again, this is the weekly discussion with Vance Johnson. Of course, you have the the Sunday sit down as well, but it allows you to have a voice. It allows you to get opinions, and if you have questions, reach out to. Of course, you're everywhere in the community anyway. Right. So ask questions if there's something that's on your mind, because you guys need to hear it too.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that the last time about it's surprising that people do not ask a lot. And then, of course, when I went to Creedmoor and Hot Sauce, it was a little bit more there where the citizens were asking more questions, and which is great. I think that's fantastic. And I think people are just now starting to get interested in, hey, we're getting ready to have to vote. So I think that's you're starting to see a little bit of uptick in that. And so maybe they will. Maybe people will ask more questions and get more involved. I know they will. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So that's a good thing.
Again, you can reach out to my contact email, which is contact@nextdoorradio.com. You can find Vance Johnson, of course, on social media as well. But we like to finish kind of these last couple minutes of opening of the floor of any topic, anything that you want to focus on that we haven't really discussed today or in the past.
Well, we haven't really discussed in the past. We have, but it continues to be an issue that I think is brought forward. And after the last time you and I talked and did the show, I went back and I thought about it, and I said, when we talk about comparing our experiences, the average citizen probably don't understand what we're talking about, because they're really not directly involved with anything with law enforcement. Most of the times they encounter law enforcement, it's in a negative way or citation or whatever. It shouldn't be that way, but a lot of times it is. And so I thought, how do I simplify it so that it's understandable for everybody? And I think that the easiest way that I can explain it is I hire people, like I said, hire, fire, discipline. I've said that before. And, I hire people. And if the Democratic candidate, if I hired him today, he would be required to go through a full basic law enforcement training. There wouldn't be a waiver for his military experience from 30 years ago. It doesn't meet that requirement. And once he completed that basic law enforcement training, he would receive a probationary law enforcement certificate. That's good for 12 months. And he would be with a field training officer for 3 or 4 months, depending on the pace at which he completes the different tasks. It would be a police trainee. That's as simple as it gets. And that's not a negative on him. Again, our experiences must relate to the job that we're applying for. And that's exactly where we are. And I don't know that I can get any more simple than that. I think people need to really seriously consider that. What do you want day one? It's not an entry-level position. I'm the right choice, the right experience, the right choice. Absolutely.
Vance Johnson, candidate for Granville County Sheriff, joins us here by way of, and this is our weekly discussion and part of our coverage of the local elections here on Next Door Radio. Vance Johnson, I appreciate you, my friend. God bless you. Thanks for being in the community, what you do for the community, and we'll see you next week, okay?
Outstanding, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. One more. Where can the listeners of this program find some more information about you? Of course, social media. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, social media. Facebook is a good way of directly contacting me because I get a message. I've got the email is listed there. I've got a webpage, VanceJohnsonForSheriff.com is also a good place where you can see, some historical stuff that's a little more static, but you can reach me through there as well. My phone number is pretty public. I don't mind if you call or text me. It's pretty easy to find. And if I am working, I don't typically respond to those calls, so don't expect an immediate response. But lunchtime, I'll call you back. That kind of thing. But I'm available. Just reach out to me.
Good deal. Well, my friend, God bless you. Thank you. Good luck the rest of the way. Again, this is the Weekend Discussion with candidate for Granville County Sheriff, Vance Johnson. My name is Trace Knott. Until next time, God bless. We'll see you later.